Today on Faith Rehab Podcast, we're going to interview my longest best friend of 50 years, Truls Neal.
Truls is cool. And you're going to listen to a lot about racism in church.
And I learned a new prank that I'm going to start using when people get married.
That's so good.
Yes. Keep listening.
Welcome, everybody, to Faith Rehab. This has been such a fun interview that we did today, but this is a place where we can come and talk about church hurt and the things that have helped and where we're headed. I am Heidi, and I call myself the mother of dragons because I have 4 sons, and I just got my 21st tattoo of 4 dragons down my arm.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Nice.
My dad doesn't like it. He's like, you're running out of real estate.
It's okay. That's cool.
Okay, Dad.
Hey, I'm CJ. My name is AKA BMI Too High. But I met Heidi's cousin. She visited Sacramento, and she said, you need to stop using that name,
True.
BMI Too High.
True.
Because when she saw me, you could see it in her eyes. She expected some big bowling ball of a guy. And I was like, that's right. I'm kind of lying to our listeners, right? So
CJ looks good.
That's funny.
Thanks, April.
And I'm Steve, and I am a therapist, but I am not your therapist. And when I was in high school, I went to summer camp and I won the watermelon seed spitting contest.
Wow.
Yeah.
What does
I
that even
killed it.
mean?
I don't know.
Like they had a contest. Come up here and spit a watermelon seed as far as you can. And I went
Oh.
farther. I am more full of hot air than anyone else at that camp. I think that's what that means. Anyway, today is going to be a great episode. We're going to interview my friend Truls, and stay tuned because we have a lot of really cool, interesting things to talk about.
Add it up.
Well, this week's episode is a thrill for me because I get to introduce you guys and the world to my friend Truls Neal. Hi,
Hey.
Truls.
Hello, everybody.
Truls.
Good to see you all.
Nice to see you.
Hi, CJ.
You're hearing it correctly. It's Truls, Truls. And I've known Truls a really long time. And for that whole time, he's told me that's a very common name in Norway.
Oh.
I've never seen it in a Norway baby book, nor have I ever met anybody from Norway named Truls except for my guy, Truls Neal.
Hey.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I want to tell you guys that Truls, not only, despite being my friend, he has done some really great things with his life. He's one of the most gracious people I know. He's one of the most honest and well thought people I know. But he's been the associate director of the Oregon Food Bank in the whole state of Oregon, but it's housed in Portland. He's been a technical advisor to justice system partners, where he's helped other counties help with their justice system. He was for Multnomah County, which is sort of the Portland and surrounding areas in Oregon, which is the largest county in all of Oregon. He's been district manager, division director, deputy director, and he was the executive director for that whole shebang. So if you've been on probation or parole in that county, you may have heard of Truls Neal. He also has done lots of other things in probation. He's actually been on probation for about 26 years. He's been a field services manager. He worked beginning with youth, and Truls and I actually worked together for a very short stint. It seemed like forever to the ones around us, but we worked together. I was teaching high school, and he was
It was called a campus aide, campus monitor.
yeah.
Basically, the guy who walks around with a walkie-talkie and says, "Get to class, put out that cigarette," that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Put out that cigarette.
Yeah, he has done some other things in that job that we may or may not get to today. He has a Bachelor of Arts in Sociology from California State University, San Bernardino. Go Coyotes, where I also got my master's degree. Truls and I graduated on the same day, same place, at our own graduation party. He's won the pre-doctoral scholarship He's been elected president of the sociology club. He's been the certified parole and probation officer. He was a certified supervisor. Truls, that's impressive, man.
Yeah. I feel like I have done nothing.
I know, seriously, what's my life?
I will tell our audience and you guys that Truls and I met when we were in high school. We went to different high schools, and we were both part of a nationwide youth organization that had clubs at different schools, and we met then. And then we were leading clubs and had lots of interactions together. And then we
And then you guys hit the club.
and then we hit the club. And then we worked together a little bit. And when Truls was getting married, I was best man in his wedding.
Oh,
Wow.
Isn't that sweet? I'll tell you a story at the end about how I failed him as best man.
Yes.
But yes, it was so sad. But also, he was at my wedding, and he has been my closest friend, I think, for 50 years.
Wow.
And that should tell you all you need to know about how much grace he has in his life, because it ain't easy being friends with Steve McNair.
You guys go on these bro vacations that I want to somehow get into.
They're called
mancations.
Yes, not brocation,
Sorry,
mancation.
I forgot. Boys to men.
Yep.
What have we done on our mancations, Truls? Give us a little rundown.
We went to the NCAA basketball tournament in Anaheim.
Yeah, we did.
We've been to Arizona, to Diamondback Stadium. I also watched the Dodgers during spring baseball. We went to Kansas City recently.
Yep.
And went to a Kansas City Royals game and did a great tour of the Negro Baseball Hall of Fame. And that was great. Had a good time.
Yes.
The goal is not so much to go somewhere, it's just to go hang out and be together. So
we need new people to make fun of, so we have to keep going to different cities. But
you got to come to Milwaukee, eh? Come to a Brewers game.
You betcha. Yeah, Heidi is season ticket holder for the Milwaukee Brewers.
I thought you were in Chicago, Heidi. You're in Milwaukee.
Well, I'm north of Chicago. I'm in Illinois, right between Milwaukee and Chicago.
Oh, okay.
And I'm a huge fan of Milwaukee and will live there one day. So until then, I just spend my money there, go to the games.
Support the community.
They swept the Dodgers. I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings on this podcast.
That kind of hate is not tolerated here, Heidi.
Well, and it's let's talk playoffs, not just games during the season.
Was that the same day that the Dodgers got their World Series rings? I don't know. Hey, Truls, we could just talk all day. I mean, this would be like a 6-hour podcast. People would love it, I promise you, because we have entertaining stories. But Truls, let's get into your story. As you know, this podcast is about church hurt, but it's also really sort of about life stories.
Yeah.
You have a very interesting origin story that people hear the name Truls, and I've already told them you're Norwegian, and so I'm assuming they're picturing some blonde-haired, blue-eyed guy. And so tell us your story. If this is hitting home, leave us a review. It helps others to find us. We'd also love to hear your church hurt story for a future episode. To share your story or to partner with us, head to faithrehabpodcast.com.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, Steve, because one of the things that is amusing to me is when I'm on the phone with somebody who's never met me and they go, Truls, well, that's a very interesting name. What kind of name is that? And I'll say, well, it's Norwegian. Oh, you Norwegian? Yeah, actually, I was born in Norway. Came over here when I was about 2 years old, and my mother's Norwegian. And they go, oh, great. Then I'll see them in person, and they see the 6'3" black man. They're like, huh? It's a little incongruent there. So I always get a kick out of that kind of, not to trick people, but just kind of the irony of, I'm not what you expect. None of us are what people expect people to be.
Just real quick, because when I first met you at Steve's 40th last week.
Let's review. I'm not 40. I'm about to be 6'7". But I had a 40th wedding anniversary party.
Wedding anniversary. And Truls flew in and he approached me and said, CJ? I said, hey. And he said, remember me?
Yeah.
And in my mind, I was like, oh no, I don't know this face. And he just stared at me for the longest time and said, no, you don't remember me? Come on, man. Come on. And like he was just messing with me. He's like, no, I listen to your podcast. I know you. You don't know me. I'm Truls. I was like, oh, this guy.
I knew
Go ahead.
CJ could take it. So thanks.
Oh,
Steve.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I was born in Norway. I have a twin brother. His name is Per. And
Wow.
we did come over to the United States when we were 2. My mom and dad weren't married at the time that we were born. And my mom brought us to the United States to be with my dad. Had green cards because we weren't legal citizens. Well, at that point.
By the way,
And
Truls' green card picture is one of the great child pictures of all time, and he swears he lost it, but I hope we find it someday.
Oh my
it's just a picture of a little crying baby. And
Oh.
so my parents, my dad was stationed in Washington, D.C. at an Air Force base. I think it was Andrews Air Force Base. Because they were a mixed marriage, black and white, they couldn't live in Virginia or Maryland legally.
Mm.
I'm not sure how much they were enforcing it at the time, but my parents didn't want to take any chances. They had a lot
Wow.
of run-ins with racism that I had never seen and thankfully didn't have to deal with. We grew up moving around quite a bit. My dad liked to take assignments back in Europe because he felt more comfortable in Europe. So we spent some time in Germany on an Air Force base there, spent a lot of summers going back up to Norway to see my grandmother and grandfather and aunts and uncles there. So I was very close, and I still am very close to my Norwegian family.
Truls, I don't think I know this answer, but when you're in Norway, like how many black people are there?
Well, there has been an influx of black folks. There's been a lot of immigration there from Somalia, especially,
Okay.
which has created some issues within that country, not to the degree we've seen here, but there is some pushback, I think, in all of Europe with some immigration issues. But I noticed when I was on a train a few years ago, I got some side-eye looks from people, and I was like, like they thought I might be an immigrant or something. But
Okay.
anyway, I was raised Catholic, went to Catholic school, and my brother and I primarily went to Catholic school because when we were going to public school in Virginia, we landed in Virginia probably when we were about 2nd grade, and my brother and I were getting beat up almost daily.
Wow.
The biggest issue for us was dealing with the other black kids in the community in our apartment complex. They didn't like the fact that my mom was white, and they thought we were too white in terms of how we behaved, how we talked, and how we carried ourselves. That became a theme, I think, for the rest of my growing up life, that some of my struggle was with other black people who thought I wasn't black enough or was trying to be white, those kinds of things. It was kind of that struggle between being biracial for me. We ended up going to a Catholic church, going to Catholic school in Virginia. And I remember even as a young person, 10, 11 years old, really paying attention to the Bible, paying attention to the homilies that the priest would give. And about 11 years old, I remember distinctly thinking, I'm not buying this stuff. I'm not sure this religion stuff is true. And questioning why Christianity, why not Buddhism, why not Hinduism, why not this? Why are they wrong? And it didn't work for me. So I stopped going to church about that time and went into public school. We moved to California when we were about 11. My dad retired from the Air Force, and I spent the rest of my growing up years in Riverside, California.
Can I pause for a second? I have a question to ask because I didn't know you were a twin.
Yeah.
My dad is an identical twin.
Oh, no, I'm a fraternal twin.
Okay.
An interesting thing about my brother and I is we have very different, I don't know if you've ever done this with your family, where you sit down and you talk about growing up.
Yeah.
And you realize they perceived things very differently than I did. Their experience was unique to them, and my experience was unique to me. An example of this is my best friend growing up, before I met Steve, was a guy named Jeff Spencer. Jeff was blonde-haired, blue-eyed. He was about 12, 13. I was about the same age. And we used to go everywhere together. And we would go places with my mom. And my mom's blonde-haired, blue-eyed, right? And we'd walk into these stores, and I'd be going, "Hey, Mom!" And Jeff would say, "Mrs. Neal." And people would look, "What's going on here? What's going on here? Why is that black kid calling, that kid's mom?"
That's so funny.
But my brother, when I told that story to my brother a few years ago, he said, "Oh, that used to embarrass me because I hated that when people would notice that, So it was a different experience. So,
because that was my question was going to be how did having a twin impact your life experiences? Because my dad and his twin, I think because they had each other, it made things a lot easier when they were confronted with any kind of conflict or struggle. And so I wondered, like, if having a kind of a partner in crime, it was a little bit more manageable because you were navigating it together. But it sounds like you had two different experiences.
Well, and because I think we were fraternal twins, because I've known other twins that were identical, they tended to be more in line emotionally, maybe, or psychologically. But my brother and I are very, very different and had a lot of conflict growing up, and always at each other, fighting, arguing. And some of that was because of our family too, to be honest. I knew we had a somewhat dysfunctional family with alcoholism and other things going on. And we experienced those things differently. When I mentioned my friend Jeff, when the dysfunction was happening in my family, I was at Jeff's house, and his family was pretty well put together. I'd go on vacation with Jeff's family. I had a way of just coping by escaping.
Yeah.
So, and Per was right there. He dealt with a lot of stuff, and we're very close today. He actually moved to Portland not too long after we moved here. We are good friends today. So
that's awesome.
That's great.
Truls, talk a little bit more about how, so the people that can't see you, Truls is a 6'3". He wears size 14 shoes. I know that from his wedding. I've heard mixed people say, I could pass as African-American, I could pass as Puerto Rican, I could pass. What I can't pass for is white.
Right.
And Truls is probably, would you say caramel color latte? What would you?
Latte,
like
kind of
something delicious.
Yes. Coffee with a little bit of cream.
A little bit of cream, not quite half and half. But talk about how that's affected your growing up life, your church life. Take us where you want.
My parents were though we had some dysfunction in the family, they were good about issues of race and making sure that we were exposed to all kinds of different people. We had people come over to our house that were Black, white, all Hispanic. It was a very mixed community that we were a part of. One of the things that was always bothered me, especially about the things you would see in church, Catholic Church, Protestant church, was the images of a white Jesus with blonde hair and blue eyes. Always just didn't work for me. Not because I wanted Jesus to, quote, be Black or anything like that, but I wanted a more true depiction of what somebody from the Middle East would look like.
And he was the one and only white guy in the Middle East.
Yes. And I became a Christian when I was about 15 through that national youth organization, to be unnamed, at a camp in Colorado. And it was at that point in my faith journey that I would say I gave my life to Jesus and started a relationship with Christ that was meaningful to me and life-changing. And when I came back home, I stayed involved with that youth organization, but I was reluctant to go to church. My youth leader in that unnamed youth group was involved in a local evangelical church and encouraged me to go with him. And he became the youth pastor. I became his somewhat assistant in an unpaid role. And we did a lot of good youth ministry in that church. At some point, that youth pastor left that church, and there was a vacancy for the youth pastor position. And the kids in the youth group and the other volunteers in the youth group assumed that, well, Truls is going to be the next youth pastor. It's just normal that he would be because he's been here, he's working with us. And I think they believed I was doing a good job.
And did you want to be?
Yeah, at that point, I wanted to be the youth pastor and had good connections with those youth. Then they asked a couple other people to take the job who didn't take it. And then finally, I don't remember what the position was, but somebody in the church that was in charge of hiring called me in for an interview. And I went in for the interview, and he said, "Yeah, we want to offer you the job." And I kind of said, "Well, what was?" I was kind of surprised it took this long to get to me. I mean, I was kind of honest about that. And I said, what was the holdup? And he says, well, we had some people on our church board. I think it was like a deacon board, or I'm not sure what the exact name was, but it was, a governing body of the church. They had concerns about having a black person as the youth pastor. And I turned to the gentleman and said, "You know what? I can't take the job."
Wow.
And he said, "Why not?" I said, "Well, if race was a reason to be considered in hiring me, I don't feel good about that. It shouldn't even have been a question in my mind. If it's about my faith, about what I believe, I didn't tell him that. I'm telling you that, or some other character thing, but race as an issue of whether you should hire me would be troubling."
Wow.
Also, I remember being at that youth organization where I became a Christian, being asked to come back. We had this thing where they would have what they called a work crew and summer staff. And to be on work crew, you had to apply and read these books and fill out application. So I did all that stuff, and I was selected. And I got to go back to this camp to work there for a month. And the person who was in charge of the work crew told me, I said, really glad to have been asked to do this. This was some point in the month I was there. And he told me, you were only selected because you were black.
Whoa.
And that just really, it really hurt. I was like 16, 17 at the time. And coming from an adult figure that I respected, it just really, it made me feel devalued. Like, wow, only because I was black? You just needed one of us? And that theme followed me into especially into my work life, where I was always, to be honest, I was always questioning, are they hiring me because I'm black? Are they promoting me because they need one that they can check off? Not necessarily for my skills or my ability to work with people. And that's been a hard thing for me to deal with in a professional sense, but in the church as well, being involved with churches. Steve and I were in a church together in Riverside, California, and it was a small church, maybe 100 or so people. I remember we would have these gatherings to get together and talk to one another and share. It was a church that had many different people in it. We had one couple that was Filipino and white, another couple that was Hispanic and white, and we had several Hispanic and white couples. And then we had Robin and I, and we were sitting around in a big circle, and people were sharing. And one of the people said, "Truls and Robin, we have a question for you. How does it feel to be the only interracial couple or biracial couple in our church?" And I said, "I don't think we are." But it was just that perception that black and white, is much more perceived as different than maybe Hispanic and white or Filipino and white or whatever it may be.
I was with you one time at a church gatherings, maybe similar to that, or maybe it was just a small group or something, where somebody said something, and then the response was, "Well, Truls doesn't count. He's not even black."
Right.
And I asked you about it later. Like, what does that mean? And why do people say that? By the way, if you're a listener, don't ever say that to somebody. It's like,
Stop it.
it's like, just stop it today.
Mhm.
But what was that like to hear those things in the church?
What I've come to understand is that when someone says that, they have probably a limited experience with Black people
Mhm.
and see them more one-dimensionally. They're not what they see on TV or this image they have of a Black person.
Yeah.
And if you know Black people, and I know quite a few, there's a diversity amongst Black people, just like I'm sure there's a diversity in the Filipino community. There's a diversity in the white community of people who think differently, who come from different social strata. So I think that's just, from my point of view, I look at it as they don't know any better, and they're ignorant to those kinds of things. And I've heard that. I mean, it's not just white people I've heard that from. I've heard that, and I mentioned this earlier, I've heard that from Black people. I remember when I worked at Arlington High School with Steve, I had a Black kid who he and I used to get into it. I was there monitoring, trying to keep kids in line, and he and I would always have these, I wouldn't call them confrontations, but verbal exchanges. And he would say, how come you talk white? And I came up with a good comeback when he said it. And I said, so let me get this right. To speak good English is to be white. Is that what you're saying? And he kind of backed off. But
this is my professional world is diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. That's like where I exist. And so I'm really thankful that you're sharing your story. And what it's making me realize is that when we've interviewed other people on this show, regardless of their background, whether they're part of the LGBTQ community, whether they're a person who's biracial or Black, it's other people telling them who their identity is.
Yeah.
And it's like if I met Steve and
Yes.
Steve's like, please don't call me Steven. Like, doesn't Steve get to decide who it is, like how he wants to be called and how he identifies? And to grow up with that, there would just be such a like dissonance between how you're trying to experience the world and how you're perceived and being told how you have to fit in. That would just be really a hard thing to manage. And so I really appreciate you sharing your experiences because it's unique, but I think it also resonates with a lot of people who are biracial and a part of the Black community. So thank you.
Yeah. I think for my wife is white, and we've been married almost 40 years as well, and have two daughters, 32 and 30. And we have been very intentional about seeking out diverse communities. We chose to live in Portland, in what we call Northeast Portland, which has a higher concentration of people of color. Portland doesn't have, quote, a Black neighborhood, but it has a neighborhood that is more diverse. And that was important to us. It was important to us that we chose churches that were diverse.
Yeah.
There was a point in Rob and I's married life where we both came to the same conclusion about church, somewhat independently, but at the same time, we decided to return to the Catholic Church. And I tell people, when some of my, we got some pushback from some family members and other people who felt like, why are you going back to Catholic Church? What Rob and I would say is, for us, it wasn't that the Catholic Church was right, like there was one right Christian church to belong to. It's what was right for us.
Yeah.
And I feel strongly that people need to worship where they can best connect to God. And that may be for some people at a Baptist church or at an Episcopal church or whatever that may be. For us, it was the Catholic Church. And one of the things that helped us, because we live in a diverse community in Portland, most Catholics, not all, and it's not as structurally rigid as it used to be, but most Catholics go to their local parish. So they don't typically go to a church because, of the pastor or the programs or this or that. It's more like, hey, this is our this is in our neighborhood. We're in this parish. This is where we go. And when we went back to the Catholic Church, that's the parish in our community, it was very, very diverse and was good we felt it was good for our kids and good for us. And so
I want to make a point of something that you have taught me over the years, Truls. It's maybe the only thing you've taught me.
It wasn't a jump shot.
No, it wasn't that. It might have been a left-handed backhand from tennis, but one of the things that I didn't realize, I grew up in an area that was mostly white, but my high school was, whites were only about a third. So there was a lot of Latino, a lot of African American, some Asian, and I thought that was normal. Like, I thought everybody had relationships like that. And what Truls has taught me, most of the HR problems he's had, and he's worked his way up in a very, very big, 700 plus employee kind of place, that most of the HR complaints have been people who don't know how to talk to other cultures.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I will say, I'm an old white guy. I'm about to be 6'7". But one of the things that I've realized is part of the privilege and also a curse is that if I'm around mostly white people, then somebody of color may or may not stand out. But to a person of color walking into a predominantly white area, they're going to be counting how many other people of color.
Yeah.
And I've had this reverse a couple of times when I worked as a volunteer for Habitat for Humanity, and I was on the family selection committee. So I went to all these different churches. And if I was the only white guy in the church, I knew it.
Yeah.
And I was looking for other people that looked like me. And I think that CJ, you and Truls maybe have can argue with this a little bit, but also that for people of color, they're always looking for people that might look like me, sound like me, talk like me. But for those of us that are white and in a white majority place, we need to be more aware of, let's be the first to walk across the room and make people feel comfortable. Let's do some things that will help folks understand I'm a safe person and that you belong. And I don't know how you guys feel about that, but I just feel like it's so important to make people feel welcome and belong.
In my experience, I'm Filipino. If I ever said, I don't think I've said that before, but one time I took my black friend that was in my crew. We went on a mission trip to the Philippines, and we were just walking around the neighborhood, and I've never heard so many N-words spoken directly at my friend.
Wow.
And I was just getting mad for him, right? And I was like, man, can you believe these guys? And he was like, bro, I'm the first black guy they've ever seen.
Yeah.
Right. And this kind of translates to immigrants here. They take this homogeneous community where all they saw was brown Filipino, and they actually make it racial there too. There's dark-skinned Filipino, light-skinned Filipino, and they fight each other, right?
Yeah.
But they bring it here, and they were colonized by light-skinned Spaniards, Americans, stuff like that. So they become adjacent to whites, and they kind of cling on that, and subconsciously being racist to other races because they'd never seen them before. My grandma was one of them, where I brought that same friend, slept over at my house all the time, and at first, she had an issue, but when she learned about his character and stuff, it kind of broke down the walls. But America is made up of so many different cultures who've only seen one race their entire existence, and then come here and they don't know how to communicate, and they don't know how to act right or whatever. So it's very interesting.
Along those same lines, and Truls, you can tell me the number, but it's a ridiculous number of people, white people, that don't have any black friends or people of color. And it's like 78 or 80% or something like that. Of course, you're not going to know how to relate to other folks.
When I talk to people about race, I think that race is something that in the church, as Christians, that, and I've told Steve this before, I don't want to be about race relations. I want to be about grace relations, because I think that's what Jesus calls me to. And that means when people say the wrong thing, the ignorant thing, that I try to meet them with the grace. Sometimes people are being mean, like you mentioned, CJ. When you're calling somebody the N word, that calling names and that kind of thing is just mean. But other times people just either don't know better, they're inexperienced. So I try to treat those situations as, how do I bring what the grace that God has given me into that relationship. And sometimes I get met with meanness, but most of the time that is not true. Most of the time people want to, because there is this element, and I experienced this when I was working for the county here in Portland, where there was kind of this gotcha mentality, whether, someone says something wrong in a meeting, or, oh, got to get rid of that person. They said the wrong thing. I remember there was someone that said, it was in a meeting, and it was a racially mixed group of people. And one of the leaders in the group said, I don't mean to be a slave driver.
Oh.
Totally wrong thing to say. Totally wrong thing to say. But the fact that person got fired for that, that was a little harsh to me. I thought that was a learning moment of, hey, let me tell you why that's wrong. And Rob and I talk about things that we heard growing up from our parents. My dad used to say, "Are you out of your cotton picking mind?" And you think about that, when I was a kid, I didn't think about it. But as you get older, you kind of go, ooh, do you know what that was about? I think that's where people use terms, words, ideas that they grew up with, and they just don't know any better. And again, if they don't want to move off of that, I don't know what to do about that. But if most people want to do the right thing, I believe.
It changes. The language changes, and what was offensive then is not offensive anymore. And what's offensive now, and I love your perspective, because it's an opportunity to invite an honest conversation. Can we be in a safe space where we can learn from each other, instead of, you're fired, or I'm going to become more entrenched in my position? And it creates more of that us versus them mentality. But when we invite people into our stories and extend grace, that's when we learn and grow, and we become better together.
Right.
Absolutely.
I think also a lot of, Truls and I have had so many conversations, and sometimes it's him helping me because I need it. And sometimes it's me asking, what is it? Is this okay? Is this not okay? And I think if we can humble ourselves a little bit to go, tell me your story, help me understand this. Why is this wrong? Or is it not okay to say?
And Truls is not the spokesperson for every biracial person, right? Because
No,
everyone's experience too is
No.
different.
I thought that's why we put him on. He's a spokesperson.
Yeah, we're going to give out his number. Just text him.
I also have to say, when Steve's talking about him learning from me, I think about, in my younger years, being angry and being saying things that were not that I'm not proud of. And for me, it's been a growth and an evolution, and I'm still growing. I haven't arrived. And I feel like God is always teaching me more about how to be a better Christian, how to be a better person. And, one of the things that I would throw out, and you all are keenly aware of, is our church in the United States is one of the most segregated places in America. And I think that's changing. I mean, when I look at, especially in some of the areas like Portland, Sacramento, LA, the bigger cities, you're seeing more interracial churches, diversity in churches. And I think that's my hope, my prayer for the church in the United States, is that we do more of that bridging and joining together, because I think that would speak volumes to other people, to non-believers. And a lot of non-believers I run into see the racism in the church, and don't want to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And other things, and other
Yeah.
things, they
And
don't
other
want to be a part
issues
of.
that we.
And I know it's not the whole church. I'm not, but that's not a blanket statement.
Well, Truls, for all those things you've said to me, I forgive you. I go to a church that's pretty diverse, and I had never thought about it till I got there, that this is what heaven is going to look like.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes people will complain about their church, you know, especially if it's too big. I go, you don't like a big church, you're going to hate heaven. If you don't like diverse church, you're going to hate heaven, because it's every tribe, every tongue, all of that. I'm loving this conversation, Truls, and thank you. But I want to kind of turn a corner to see if there's other things that you wanted to include, because I think you may have already hit them, but we tend to follow a format where we talk about your story, and then we talk about what's helped and where you headed. And you've talked a little bit about grace relations, which, you know, you and I have talked about for a long time and has really stuck with me.
That's good.
And I'm working on that for sure. But are there other things that you feel like have helped, or other things you want to say about, like, where are you headed in this journey?
A few years ago, I have a friend, Hector, who is a non-believer, but we're very close friends. He has a mission statement for his life. And I thought, oh, mission statement. I love that. So I adopted a mission statement for my life. And that mission statement is to build community in everything I'm involved in, whether it's in my neighborhood, whether it's in my church, whether it's at work. My mission, my mission statement is to build community. And that means building community with people who are different than me. And I think one of the, for people who maybe you belong to a church that, you know, it's the church you belong to, and there may not be diversity there, but there may be diversity at your work. How can you reach out to people at your work and have them over for dinner, be involved with people, and learn with not with a, I'm gonna help a Black person, but a curiosity to want to learn and gain something from folks. One of the things I joke about what I just said, but I also think my concern sometimes where some white people can be paternalistic, where they want to, I'm going to help this person, rather than what can I learn from this person? What can I, what does this person have to offer that will benefit me or benefit my community?
I love it.
So,
so good.
But that takes stepping out of our comfort zones, being uncomfortable. At our church, we have an African community from several different countries, Ghana, Sierra Leone, and there's a Black couple in front of us from Sierra Leone that have 3 beautiful little daughters. They're just so cute. And we always greet them and chat with them and talk to them. One Sunday, they said, hey, we want you to come to our house. We're having an event for our daughter. I was like, okay. And so Robin and I went, took our girls, and there was probably 100 people there, and 90 of them were from Africa. And it was just it was beautiful. It was such a beautiful thing to walk into and to experience. Was it a little uncomfortable? Yeah. But was it really enriching to Robin and I and our girls? Oh, absolutely. So for me, it was a good experience to experience their culture, how they entertain and how they eat, how they have community together. So that was important to me.
Yeah.
You know, I think about traveling, you know, and Rob and I like to travel, and you know, when you're in other countries, experiencing that other country's culture and trying to find out where I know Steve does this too. It's like, where do the locals eat? What do the locals do? Not just what do the tourists do, but what is life really like for folks? So
I wanted to say, me and Steve go to the same church, and it's very diverse. And before that, I've always been to Filipino churches. And there's a role in Filipino churches, especially for immigrants that come in. They're looking for something comforting, right? But I grew up going to high school here, and my breakdancing crew had an Indian guy, Black guy, white guy, Filipinos, Vietnamese. And so I was used to that. And I didn't know I was yearning for diversity until I went to the church that I'm going to, and I see this diversity. I'm just thinking now is that I think kids and the younger generation now sees way more diversity
Oh yeah.
through social media now.
Yeah.
So for the
Yes.
church to not make this a priority, I think they're going to be missing a thing where kids are going to church is like, oh, this doesn't look like the world I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're going to feel a certain way or not. And I know there's some people that come from a homogeneous community and are looking for diversity, but there's also people that are like, I'm looking for a church to reflect my community that I
Yes.
see online or see around me.
So good.
I think as a sociologist often and think about people are responding to the container they're put in or the
Yeah.
church they're put in or the community they're put in. And one of the things I think that hasn't been helpful to making churches more diverse is the way some churches go about attracting people. You go to some churches, they play one kind of music.
Yes.
It's
Mhm.
rock music.
In one language.
In one, you know what I'm saying? And
Mhm.
there's some, I think when you have diversity, the truth is you're going to have some conflict in that growing together. In places
Yeah.
I've worked, in churches I've worked in, when we're trying to build relationships across our differences, there's conflict.
Mhm.
And conflict about the kind of music we're going to have, conflict about as somebody said, language. In our church, we have a large Spanish speaking community. And one of the things that has been an issue is, do we have a separate service for Spanish speakers or a separate service for English speakers? And what does that do to the relationships when we do
Mhm.
that? Or should we try to figure out how to integrate that with different languages and different traditions so that we can meet everybody's needs
Mhm.
or meet some of everybody's needs, not
Yeah.
all of one.
Some of
needs.
everybody's. Hey,
So,
we could probably go on forever and ever, and Truls and I have been known to stay up through the night in solving the world's problems,
Yeah.
and then not
with
remember
communion.
with communion, and then not remember what the solutions are. But and I want to just kind of end with a call to action that if you heard something on this podcast that you liked, will you just send it to somebody, subscribe, do all that stuff. But also, even maybe more importantly, this week, before you forget, will you just try to find somebody who's different than you in some way, politically, racially, faith wise?
Yep.
And will you just try to learn from something from them? Will you just spend a little time trying to get to know what you can learn from them?
Yeah.
And we'll just kind of keep plowing forward. Truls, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
I got to just tell all of you, he's my best friend. You can't have him. All right. Thanks, Truls.
Okay, all right.
And as you know, we try to end our episodes with something funny and stories. And so you heard a lot from my friend Truls, and I was best man at his wedding, and I failed him.
Yep.
Oh, it was so
What
sad.
did you do?
His wife told me, you got one job to do, and I completely blew it. Their wedding was beautiful. It was amazing. It was awesome. But there was a part at the wedding where they were going to kneel down and do communion. And, you know, Robin said, just make sure nobody writes something stupid on his shoes. And I go, okay, cool. So I checked. He wears size 14. Okay, it's not like, anyway, I checked his shoes 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, and nothing. I was the hero.
Wait, hold on. Is this a thing? People write on the bottom of people's shoes?
I'll get there.
Okay.
I was like a hero, CJ. I was a hero. I had done my job. Robin was actually going to like me for a while. And then they go to take communion and they kneel down together and they take communion. And as Truls kneels down, all the audience could see is his back and his shoes. And somebody had written, "Help me," on the shoes.
That's so good.
How did they do that with me checking on him all the time? Well, I'll tell you
Yeah.
how they did. Here's the backstory. He has 2 other friends that also wear size 14 shoes, and they were in the wedding, and one of them slipped it at the very last second. Like, while they
wow.
were putting on their shoes, they were putting on Truls' shoes and
Oh my
slipped it in there.
gosh.
And so I had one job to do and I blew it. Truls, I am eternally sorry
That's
for
so
that.
good though. So memorable.
Truls, you also brought a story or two, and I thought they were hilarious. So do share.
Yes. I have mentioned my two wonderful daughters, Hannah and Eleanor. One story I want to tell about Hannah. When Hannah was about 5 years old, we're driving through the neighborhood and go down this one street, and we pass this huge cemetery with the big Gothic gravestones and whatnot with beautifully manicured lawn.
Mm-hmm.
Hannah says, "What's that, Mom?" And Robin says, "Oh, that's a cemetery." And she goes, "What's that for?" She goes, "That's where they put people when they die." And Hannah pauses, and you can see her thinking, and then she says, "Is that heaven?"
Not impressed.
And then we had to go into this whole metaphysical conversation about the spirit and the body and
That was the theology lesson right there.
Yep.
That's fantastic.
And then Ellie, when she was about 5, Ellie and Hannah both loved going to church, and the pastor at our church was doing a thing. We were doing a thing around Lent. And they would have this time where they would bring kids up front and just kind of give them a mini sermon before they did the full-on sermon.
Yeah.
And the pastor was talking about what Lent meant, that it was a time to give up something you really care about or really like, so you can better focus on your faith and focus on Jesus. And so the pastor's going around asking different kids, what do you want to give up to focus better on Jesus? And gets to Eleanor and says, "Eleanor, what are you going to give up?" Ellie says, "Church." Everybody just started laughing. It was hilarious.
She might be the poster child for children's Lent, because a lot of people want to give that up.
That's great.
She was over. Ellie and her girlfriend were over last night, and I was telling her we were doing this. I said, "Are you okay if I share this?"
That's so good.
She said, "It's fine."
That's fantastic. Well, Truls, thank you for the stories. Thank you for the great wisdom. Thank you for Grace Relations.
Nice to meet you, Heidi.
So good to meet you.
CJ, when I see you next time, don't forget me.
Can't now. Can't.
To our listeners, we'll see you next time on Faith Rehab Podcast.
Be blessed.
Bye. Thanks, Truls.
Bye.
See y'all.
Okay, all right. Add it up.
Hey, thank you for listening today, as always. We're glad that you were here with us. If this connected with you in any way, well, that's why we do it. And we want to challenge you. If you know of someone else who this episode will speak to, forward the episode to them and let them get some real talk, real help, and they will probably be real glad you did.